Welcome, Seeker, to Mystic Praxis, a charming podcast at the crossroads where the eclectic meets the divine. Join us as we play with integrating spiritual pathmaking and modern culture to make our everyday lives more mindful, mystical, and magical, and to share what we learn along the way. Whether you're a longtime skeptic or down for some full-on witchy woo-woo, this lo-fi, high-vibe series has got you covered. Well, hello, seekers and skeptics. Welcome back to another episode of Mystic Praxis, a charming little podcast where we look to see how we can bring some magic into our real lives. And holy cow, it's gotten real interesting in our real lives, hasn't it, lately? Today we're going to do something really practical, magical mixtapes. Whether you're a seeker or a skeptic, I think that we can all agree that if you get the right playlist, man, it can really, really change your frame of mind. I kind of wanted to harken back to what is magic really, and how might we use something as simple as a mixtape in order to affect change. So the Oxford Dictionary, or the Oxford Dictionary Online, defines magic as the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces, something that has a delightfully unusual quality. That's magic with a C. If you hang around in sort of witchy mystical circles, some of those folks spell magic with a CK. And that K makes all the difference. And the most commonly used definition of magic that you'll hear some variants of it, but it is accredited to Aleister Crowley, and it is magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And that is also sometimes shifted a little bit as sort of the science and art of causing a change of consciousness in conformity of will. And just kind of thinking about what magic is, if you sort of pull out the keywords of either one, they're both about manifesting change. And on the magic with a CK version, there's a lot of emphasis on manifesting change in accordance with one's intent. And so I think whether you are woo-woo or whether you're super logical, like if you're super logical, I think what you should hear when you hear something like that is like, yeah, you set a goal. And then you have a plan to achieve that goal. And if it's a really important goal, you prioritize it. And when you're prioritizing something, you are adding focus. And if you're a woo-woo person, a big part of what makes magic magical, meaning having a delightfully unusual or mysterious quality, is this idea that, if you focus your intent, laser focus your intent, and really push your whole will on it, you can actually observe then sort of these changes that you end up creating in your life. And magic is mysterious, I think, just because we as human beings have some pretty amazing powers inside of us when we really do focus, when we really do prioritize, when we really do try and align our efforts with an intended outcome. That, by the way, is one of the reasons why I'm talking to you about magical and mystical and woo-woo things, is because to a certain extent, my work life and my woo-woo life are like sort of the same. You focus on what outcomes you want, and then you do what is needed in order to do the thing. The thing, though, that I have been focusing in a little bit more on with magic is this idea that in order to really sort of focus focus your mind and direct your will, your intent to manifesting a change. You need to develop not just powers of focus, but powers of flexibility related to your mind, meaning you need to be able to literally change your own mind. Given a lot of the things happening in the world today, I feel like there are a lot of folks who want a lot of things to change, but how flexible are they in figuring out then how they need to change their own minds to manifest the outcomes that they're looking for? And one of the reasons why I think the idea of, neuroplasticity is just interesting in and of itself. And I'm a lifelong learner. I read a whole bunch of stuff. I read it critically. And I'm very interested in expanding my mind. I think there's a lot of folks who, they want to learn, they want to continue to build skills and grow, but really shifting the direction of one's thinking, that's a different skill. We don't all get prepared for that skill. But I think that is really magical, to have the ability to change your own mind, because we get really stuck in what we think is true, or what we believe. In the wise words of En Vogue, free your mind and the rest will follow. So it's kind of funny how that song lyric, which I don't know when that song came out, 1993, a real long time ago, but it just it pops in my head a lot when I think about how we kind of lock ourselves up in our own minds by getting stuck on a point. And if we could free our minds, skepticism is part of it, I suppose, and so is seeking alternatives that can explain something that we're observing. But this idea that if we can open our minds, then we experience more freedom in our reality. And that's not the only song lyric that pops in my head a lot. The other one is if you want to be somebody else, change your mind, which is a lyric from a song by Sister Hazel, which is probably, I feel like maybe in the late 90s or early 2000s that song came out. But that's also, it's sort of a radical idea, right? What is reality? And I know I sound like, one of your college friends, super late at night, and you're all eating Ben and Jerry's, and I'm saying, what is reality? But in truth, the reality that we experience is largely made up by how we process sensory inputs, right? Our reality is in fact very personal, although I think, you and me might be able to agree. Yes, you downloaded this podcast on iTunes, and yes, this Ben and Jerry's is the greatest ice cream ever. But the reality you experience is your reality, and if you are able to change your mind, you can change the reality that you can change what you are experiencing. And so indeed, the power of changing one's mind is, in my perspective, is basically borders on magical, unicorn fairies flying over the rainbow level of magic. But it is not magical in the sense that it's sort of fantastical or impossible. It's magical. It's even more magical because anyone can do it. We all have the power to do it, and I think that's pretty cool. Note about reality, personal reality, consensus reality. We're privileged to be able to have this conversation. Lots of folks are in situations that they can't just change their mind about and suddenly have the sort of reality that they are living in all change for them. The point is that every human being has the ability to sort of shift. If you're listening to this podcast, you have the ability to decide how you're going to take this information. You have a lot of power that maybe we want to tap into. And so I was inspired, I am inspired by some of the ideas that we hear in music about being able to change one's mind. And so I thought it would be apropos if then we leverage the power of art, in this case music, to figure out how to consciously redirect our energy to manifest outcomes that we're looking for. And so what I was thinking about is I've been thinking a lot about justice lately. I've also been thinking about healing. Hello, COVID. Still a thing, I hear. I'm often thinking about self-development, strength, self-love. I think you can use the approach I'm about to describe more than one way. But for me, myself, I decided that I was going to focus on justice. My approach to this magical mixtape spell work that we're about to embark on is there's a mantra called the loving kindness mantra. And if you look up loving kindness mantra on Google, you are going to find a bunch of different variants of it. And essentially it is, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. The idea is that as you're saying these things, you're matching them up with your breath, and you're really focusing on each element of that. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. But then what you do is you take that loving kindness that you are wishing to receive, and you bestow it. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And in some cases, when this is a guided meditation, you might be someone specific, or it could be sort of the general other. And it can continue, like, someone who has been kind to you, or someone who you know but you feel neutrally about. And then the more challenging one is, of course, with someone who you experience difficulty. So there's different ways to do this mantra, but essentially the idea is you think about these concepts, you really focus on them, and then as you are sort of meditating and you are repeating this and you are breathing it, you are allowing yourself to receive loving kindness because you are wishing it upon yourself. You are granting it to yourself. And by granting it to others, as you sort of extend it out, you receive some loving kindness simply by being loving and kind to others. So I really love this mantra. But what I was thinking about was, in thinking about justice, what I have been thinking about, and I was thinking about it with healing, and I'm also thinking about it with personal growth and personal responsibility and strength and stuff, but we're going to focus on justice, is I've been thinking about what I feel like the world wants from me, or what the world needs related to justice, and also what I can bring to bear. So in constructing this magical mixtape, we're sort of using something that was inspired by the loving kindness mantra, but we're going to do this sort of pop kind of modern twist on a mantra / spell. You with me? So here's the deal. Now, if you've ever, first thing I want you to do is I want you to conjure in your head. For many of you, this will be a memory. For others of you, this will be a shock. Back in the day, we used to make mixtapes. Today, maybe you create a favorites list or a soundtrack or a playlist on iTunes or Spotify or whatever music app you're using, and you could put 100 songs in it. Well, back in the day, some of us back in the day was we burned CDs off of or DVDs off of our CD burner, DVD burner on our computers. And I can't remember how many songs those could hold. Does anyone remember? I think it was like 20. And maybe the high density ones, we were able to get more songs on them. But like way back in the day, back yonder, we had a choice between cassettes. We had like, what was it? 30 and 90. Or sorry. So it's like I think there was 60 minutes and 90 minutes. So you get 30 minutes on one side, 30 minutes on the other, or the 90 minute was 45. And like, then there were some super longs, but like you couldn't play those very many times because the tape was so thin that it would break. And so here's the thing. So if you imagine everybody conjuring up this memory or this new understanding of what life was like in the 80s and 90s. So a cassette is I think it's probably like roughly, I don't think it's 3 by 5, like 2.5 inches by maybe 4 inches. Okay. And so the cassette, if it's like somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes, like max, you would have maybe like 15, 20 songs on a regular tape, and like maybe you could get up to 24 to 30. If you like the Ramones, you can fit a lot of 3-minute songs on a 60-minute tape, but most songs are around 4 minutes probably. That meant that we would have to be selective, right? So for this exercise, just so we're all on the same page, for this exercise, I'm going to recommend max 10 songs, and you're going to understand why in a moment. So mixtape, when we created these, or those of us who became like mixtape artists, we would pick our songs very purposefully because we only had so much room to go on it. By the way, it took a long time to construct these things because you're like taping and then you're switching out the cassette and like then you put the second song on. And in the cassette box, this little plastic box that you would store the cassette in is like a liner. So if you've bought CDs or, you bought albums, that like there's like beautiful pictures and like sometimes you have song lyrics, but most of the time it's just the names of the songs. And so the cassettes would be accompanied by handwritten notes, essentially. And of course, like, don't even get me started, the titling of the mixtapes was also a thing. Like, how could you come up with a title for it? It was like edgy, but it communicated your feelings. Because a lot of these mixtapes were like, you would make them for friends, right? And that's just cool. But sometimes you would make them for like the folks who you liked, your crushes and things like that. In which case, like, they were loaded with special meaning, your girlfriend or boyfriend or what have you. Some folks got really fancy with their liner notes, right? So you could, like, they would draw things like best handwriting. Well, some people had indecipherable handwriting, and what are you going to do? That's just how it is. The process of creating these mixtapes required time and it required focus, right? Because you're going to write the notes in ink. So when you write the notes in ink, you're committed. And as you are creating this tape, the first is you have to imagine how this mix is going to work, right? You guys know what I mean, right? Like how one song flows into another. That had to work. And so you really had to put time in it. And simply the act of putting time in this, time into mixtapes really focuses your intent. The message that you are trying to get across with this mix that you are creating. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create mixes for ourselves. And I'm going to use this justice idea I have as an illustration, and I'm going to talk to you about the steps that I took going through this. So materials that you would need for this. Well, one, I don't know, whatever you keep your music on. If you have albums, cool, you rock. If you still have cassettes, I'm amazed. If you are still rocking CDs, your CD collection. Maybe you're working off of iTunes or one of the other apps. I'm using Spotify, and I may publish my playlist. I haven't decided yet, but like I'm just going to use Spotify. I also want to make this extra meaningful, so I'm going to light a candle. Why? For mood, people, right? Because part of setting intention is making sure that you have the aesthetics in a way that will inspire you. So I am lighting a candle. All right, there we go. I'm lighting a candle. I have my playlist. I have a notebook because I'm going to write some of these things down, and I have liner notes. So even though I'm doing a Spotify playlist, I'm going to do some of this old school, right? Because shuffling things around in a playlist on a computer or on a phone, it doesn't have the gravitas, right? What we really want to get to is we want to like write it down, even more focused than simply assembling the playlist, writing things down. So what I did here, since I don't have any cassettes left, is I found, well, I do have some left, but I'm not set up to create mixtapes the way that I used to be. I found a 4x6 index card, and I bent it in half so that as I'm looking at it, it's a little bit smaller than a cassette tape insert, I would say. Okay. And what I'm going to do is on the inside, because I folded it in half widthwise, I guess. So it's 4x6, and now it is 4x3 because I folded it the long way. On the inside, what I'm going to do is I am going to put my focus prompts and the songs that I picked. And then on the outside, I am going to just draw things, put stickers. Maybe I will like make the tiniest vision board you ever did see, because this is even smaller than a postcard. But basically, I'm going to decorate this up. So I mentioned that I'd been inspired by the loving kindness mantra. I was, and so the part that I found inspiring was the idea that you focus internally on self and then you focus out. So what I decided to do, and you might want to change the order of this, but what I decided to do is figure out going from outside in. So the biggest outside, the world, the earth. You can interpret that however you want. I'm sort of, for me, because I'm focused on justice, it's a cross between the world and the earth. But if I was doing healing, I would probably focus on the earth, meaning the actual earth itself, because I feel like there's sort of an earth crying out element to some of the healing work that I would need to do. But in this case, this is more about the world, because justice is more of a problem, I feel, of the people living on the earth than it is the earth itself. But your mileage may vary. So the world, then my local community, and then my outside places. And so what I mean by that is like my outside places are like where I go to work, or my gym, or my school, or my favorite coffee shop, and social media. Oh, so outside places is kind of a big category. Now, inside places is about my home, my property, to a certain extent my neighborhood, but really it's about where I'm not in public, I'm not on display, I don't have to be on, although social media brings our outside places into our inside places, but inside places are in my home. And then finally, me and my body. And so for each of these 5 places, if you will, there's an energy that goes out and there's an energy that comes in. So for the world, what I am, sitting and meditating on for a little bit while I'm, figuring out the vibe I'm going for, what I was asking myself, because I did a little pre-work, what I was asking myself is, what is it? What energy am I feeling from the world? And what do I feel like the world is wanting? Now, maybe the world wants it from me in particular, but like in general, what if I sort of focus out beyond my local community, is the whole world. What does the world want, and what kind of energy is the world sending me related to justice? So the world is a little bit abstract, which is why you might want to switch the order of these, but I thought I would go from the outermost to the innermost. That made sense to me. But the energy exchange, even with the world, is bi-directional. And what I mean is, so the first song I'm going to pick is about what the world is giving me, or what the world needs. And then the second song is what I contribute back, the energy that I send back to the world, or more to the point, what I want to send back to the world. So this spell casting is descriptive in that it's part of it is about the vibe that I'm sensing, but the other part is aspirational. What do I will that I send out? Because this playlist is about shifting my own perspective and changing my own mind. And we'll get back into that a little bit more. So for each concentric circle of my influence, the world is the one I have the least influence around, right? But And it's sort of the hardest to sum up a vibe into maybe one song, but I'm ambitious. So we're starting with the world, then we're bringing it into the community. So what energy, what vibe am I feeling from my local community, and what do I think my local community needs? And then again, what am I contributing back? What do I want to be contributing back? What is my gift back to my community when it comes to justice? Okay, so that's the second concentric circle. The third one is outside places. So again, this is like your work, your gym, your school, your favorite, your local watering hole, your favorite restaurant, your favorite coffee shop, and social media. So this one is a little tricky for me. As I guess mostly I'm working and I'm on social media. So that song is going to be wild, right? What is the energy I sense from those places? And then again, like, how am I showing up? What am I contributing to the discussion? What is my gift? What do I bring? Outside places. Inside places is about sort of me in my home, me alone, right? Me when I'm not putting on a show. What do I feel like when I'm unplugged and by myself from my environment? And, what am I bringing into my own local environment? And the last one, this one I feel like I almost feel like you could just focus on this one, and you can make a mixtape out of just this one, which is my body. So what do I feel from my body? Like physically, how am I feeling the conversations that are happening? How am I feeling about justice right now? And I think for me, right, and like, again, justice is what I'm choosing, but if you were to choose healing, if you were to choose self-care or personal strength or personal growth, like, how is it feeling in your body? Because we embody these things. Our body takes on a lot of this for us. And so just to sort of sit with your candle lit, maybe with a little incense, holding onto a crystal, whatever floats your boat and allows you to focus and really listen on your most local community of all, which is you in your body. How is your body doing? How is your body feeling? And then, like, you, that little voice that's you inside of your body, what can you give back to? What can you give back to this, your most intimate of places, your own body, the container of all of your energy, yourself, your soul? Like, what gift can you bring back? So that's the setup. And so if you are playing along at home, of course, you can hit pause and go grab an index card or just a notebook. And I'll just share a little bit about the songs that I picked, but I haven't written them down yet. So I am going to probably shift these around. But what I did last night before I recorded it, because I sort of do this progressively, right? This is a great work. This is a mixtape of this is like a haute couture mixtape, because I am very focused, and you guys remember the pop episode, I get really extra. So I went through and I picked songs, and I'll let you know that although I might shift some things around, they're kind of aggro. Like, I think as a playlist, this is going to be like a get psyched mix, like one that you might run to or have like playing in the background if you're doing boxing drills. So that's, but again, how I'm feeling and how I feel my communities are feeling about justice, it's a little bit aggro right now. And before I commit this to paper, I think I want to think about if that is the best gift I can give when I show up. So let me get through it. Okay, so there's 10 songs. We're going world, community, outside places, inside places, my body, and the first song in each pair is what am I feeling from that community? What does it need? What does it need from me? And then the second song on the pair is like what I bring in, how I show up. So some of these songs might be unfamiliar to you. Totally cool. If they are familiar to you, you can hear them in the head and imagine the painstaking process I went through where I like started playing a song and then stopped it and like started playing another song, and I'm like, okay, that's like slightly more, it's hard sometimes to encapsulate complexity into a song, but I tried. So, okay, so for the world, for the energy that I'm feeling from the world, I picked, I picked Higher Ground, the Red Hot Chili Peppers version. I don't like Stevie Wonder covers because Stevie Wonder stands alone, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers version has that frenetic energy that I'm feeling, if you know what I mean. So that's what I chose, Higher Ground by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And what I'm bringing back is Wake Up by Rage Against the Machine. So right off the bat, you see what I mean about sort of the super aggro energy that I'm showing up with, which to a certain extent I'm okay with that. But I also, want to think about that if that's really what I want to commit to, because I'll tell you in the next step what happens after creating the playlist itself. Okay, so that's the world. So pair 2, my local community. So what I'm feeling from my local community is, I summarized by Freedom by Beyonce. And then what I'm bringing, Running Up That Hill, which is also a cover, but Meg Myers this time. And I feel like that is... I feel like there's some anger there, but I feel like it's more aspirational and like core strength of self than the frenetic and very in-your-faceness of the, it's not backing down, but it's not quite as in-your-face as what I was feeling from the world. And then outside places, for the outside places, what I'm feeling there, which includes social media, by the way, I picked Paper Planes by MIA. And that's work and social media, contributing some flavor. And then for what I'm bringing, it's Army of Me by Björk from the Tank Girl soundtrack. Yay. And then for inside places, the song I picked is not one that I'm super familiar with, but like loved it, and I think that it works. It's called Heroes, and I think that the band is called Criminal. It's spelled CRMNL. I'm not sure if that's a band or the front woman or like the DJ, but the song Heroes by Criminal is my inside places, what I'm feeling in the energy for related to inside places. And then what I'm bringing, my cards on the table related to inside places, which is like me in my home, without a lot of others around, is Here I Come by The Roots. Love you, Roots. If you ever spent time in Philly, I think that you probably love The Roots. And then the last one, oh wow. Okay, so the last one is How I'm Feeling in My Body. I picked the song In Action by We Are Scientists. So it's called In Action, but it is a very high-paced song. I think that the song sounds like anxiety. But I also really like it. So if you like that kind of music, you might like that song. And then what I bring into my body, or this one I feel like does have the aspirational element that I'm looking for with these songs, is Still Feel by the band Half Alive, which I think is great. So my 10 songs are Higher Ground by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Wake Up by Rage Against the Machine, Freedom by Beyonce, Running Up That Hill by Meg Myers, Paper Planes by MIA, Army of Me by Björk, Heroes by Criminal, Here I Come by The Roots, In Action by We Are Scientists, and Still Feel by the band Half Alive. So if you are familiar with that music, I think you'll pick up the vibe that I'm laying down. But you know what? It is what I'm feeling. So I think that it is a useful exercise simply to try and parse that apart, because there's so much information coming at us through these various channels. Simply to try and like sit down and try and realize like the feelings that are coming in at you versus what you feel and how you are meeting that onslaught of information and intensity and emotion. I found that useful just in and of itself. Okay, so now for the additional magic part of it. So part of this is a magical working is the research and the focus and the taking the time to construct this wonderful playlist. Now, the next part of it is, because part of what I was trying to do when I was picking the what am I bringing to the table is there's a little element of aspiration in here. And what I mean about that is I think the song Running Up That Hill by Meg Myers, although heartbreaking, there's also something about it, about being willing to still run up that hill. That's how I want to show up, right? Like the Army of Me by Björk, like that's how I want to show up. I want to be tough and I want to stand up for things in my community. That contributes to how I want to feel about justice. And so the second part of this magical working is programming me with what I am intending. It is trying to change my mind in accordance to what I will. I have things that I want to show up as and I want to be, and I want to figure out a way to hook into that energy, remind myself, and kind of take advantage of some of my own neuroplasticity. How did Sister Hazel put it? I want to be somebody else. I mean, I don't want to be somebody completely else, but I want to be a slightly better version of myself. And when it comes to justice, I have just a few things that like I want to feel like, and I want to show up like, and I want to be brave, and I want to be open, and if I want people to know where I stand, and that requires standing up, and so that's part of what I want to inspire in myself. And so now that I've come up with the songs, and I might tweak them a little bit, because I'm not going to record this. I'm not going to record the whole thing about making my little index card into a mini vision board, because there's only so much time. I'll post pictures on Instagram if you guys are interested. But so what I'm going to do next is with a candle burning and maybe some incense, and maybe I'll make myself a cup of tea, a cup of magical tea, because I think that all woo-woo folks need to have a nice cup of tea to accompany them when they are doing work that is this serious. So I'm going to write my prompts, meaning, remind myself, this song is the song about how I want to show up in my outside places, versus this song is about what I am feeling in my body right now. And maybe a little note to myself, I'm feeling this, maybe I want to be feeling slightly different, but I'm going to write down my prompts, and then I'm going to write down the song, right? Maybe I'll take, because that only is sort of half of the inside, because I'm going to write really little, like we did when we were making cassettes and CD note liners, is maybe I'm going to write a little note to myself about what was going on when I created this tape, write a little love letter to myself in my note liners, and then I am going to artify the outside of this index card. I have stickers, I have stamps, I have highlighters. I am completely fine just writing the word justice. I haven't yet named this tape. I'll have to come up with a really cool title for it. So I will write all that down. I will have decorated the heck out of this thing. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to program my brain with this mixtape. And what I mean is, this is justice, right? So this is something that it requires power, it requires strength, it requires courage. So what I am going to do to program this mixtape into my head is I am probably going to do some really tough cardio workouts to it. This is my new Get Psyched mix. And every time I play this mix, I'm going to, as the songs occur, I'm going to remind myself, and I am going to check myself against if I am showing up the way that I wanted to be showing up in whichever community these songs are for, and am I still feeling the world or my community sort of expressing the emotion that I am feeling them expressing right now. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to program my mind to remember that in my community, I am Meg Myers running up that hill. Like, that's going to be my soundtrack for how I prepare myself to show up in these spaces. And that's how I'm going to program that in my brain. Now, if you're choosing something besides justice, if you're choosing something like healing, for example, I would not recommend, for example, having your healing mix be the soundtrack, like this kind of get psyched type workout mix that you do a HIIT workout or your boxing workout or sprints on a track with. No. What I do recommend, and I recommend this so strongly, it couldn't be stronger, is that you find a practice where you can embody the feeling of these songs. So for a healing version of this, first of all, I'm guessing the beats per minute would be slightly slower. I'm guessing the tones of the singers might be a little more dulcet and comforting, right? Like, because healing requires some of that, right? And an embodied practice that you could do with a healing or a self-love, for example, type thing is you could do a yoga practice. You could just do stretching. You could do something luxurious and lovely, like take a bubble bath, right? You could play some of the songs while you are sitting on your back porch drinking your magical cup of tea. So but the idea is that don't just have it in the background while you're working until after you've sort of keyed in, and that every time that song comes on, like, you remember the why of it, and you have a chance to like remember how you want it to make you feel. I hope that makes sense. With musical magic, music changes your mind. There's repetition. Like, in my head, I can hear most of these songs in my head. I don't even need to play them because a lot of these are songs that I'm really familiar, right? I don't actually need to open up my phone in order to hear in my head Higher Ground or Wake Up or Army of Me. Like, I already know those by heart. Like, I can just think of them and I can trigger a little bit of the feeling. But when the idea of embodiment is not just to allow it to kind of sink into your brain, but also to give your body the chance to express and to feel the value of that song. I'm really big into embodied practices because our bodies do so much for us. They hold so much stress. They hold on to old emotional wounds as well as sort of the physical after effects of things like stress and panic and trauma, right? Like, we know that there are hormonal reactions to those things, chemical reactions in the brain and elsewhere in the body, but they also hold on to so much for us. And so I love being able to kind of like let your body loose and shake some of that stuff off, and also to give your body something else to do besides be your own emotional punching bag. That sounds pretty harsh. But like, make friends, make buddies with your body because you're in this together. And so and because the body absorbs so much for us, right? Feelings that our brains can't necessarily feel and process, right? Because brains are actually not the best at processing feelings. They're good at processing ideas, but they're not always the best at processing feelings. So your body takes a lot of that on. So part of if we wanted to really dig into this for our skeptical friends on the phone, why something like this might work to change your mind, to trigger certain feelings that you want to be feeling is just as much an exercise of repetition so that your mind understands what the song represents, and give your body a chance to also memorize it, if you will, by moving to it and allowing your body to feel what you want to feel represented in this music, besides the fact that dancing is just fun. So maybe we'll just leave it there. So first of all, I hope that you were thrilled to realize that you already know how to craft some pretty serious spell work that has some psychological foundations in its efficacy. So I hope that you are psyched to realize that you have been doing this all along. And if you have any fond memories of making like crazy elaborate mixtapes, awesome. And I hope that you enjoyed this as an exercise. And I hope that even if you don't go through the whole process, even if you just sort of sit and think, what is the energy I'm feeling from my community versus my outside places, as Sally described them. I hope that is useful for you, because I thought that was kind of interesting. And I also, of course, highly recommend making mixtapes because it's super fun. And I guess that's it. I'll talk to you guys later, okay? I have another episode that's already been recorded that I think will end up being released after this one. So I hope that all of your mixtapes are magical, and I hope you're having an awesome week. And I hope that you are inspired too by the idea that maybe all you need to be completely magical is the ability to change your own mind. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Mystic Praxis, and we would love it if you would hit subscribe wherever you found us, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or straight from our RSS feed at mysticpraxis.com. Don't forget, you can also give us feedback and find us live on your favorite social platforms. We are Mystic Praxis on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can email us at mysticpraxis@gmail.com. Now go out there, make some magic, and we will see you soon.